We're going to start with the tournament and golf course information, as I like to do every single week in the preview video. It's usually the first stop that I like to make. Arnold Palmer Invitational. Golf course, Bay Hill Club and Lodge. This is kind of a staple event. We've been here a lot. This is one of Tiger's courses that he's just dominated in the past. He's obviously not here this week. But it's a 7,400 yard par 72. It's usually a tough golf course. Greens are usually firm and fast. Rough is usually, I don't know, I feel like it's intermediate. Like it's not super thick from what I remember in the past. I think last year, last year was the thickest it had been in a while. I won't lie, I didn't look at the tournament fact sheets to see if it's just as thick. I imagine it is. I think that's kind of at least the direction I think the PGA Tour is trying to go with some of these golf courses, is try to make it a little bit more tough. And in fact, if we were just to talk about, I'll come back to the golf course, but we just look at results. 5 under won it last year with Scotty Scheffler. That was with the rough, thicker. Bryson had won the year before. Remember him trying to go drive the green for the par 5. Isn't that a bummer that we can't see that anymore because he went to live? I mean, I don't know if they'll ever play Bay Hill Club and Lodge, but gosh, it'd have been fun just to continue seeing him go for that green. Just to see him do it one time would have been amazing. Or if he just landed on the green, I'm sure he can't ever hold that green, but it would have been sweet, right? Moving on, though, like Tyrrell Hatton won it in 2020 at -4. It really depends on weather, which is another thing to talk about with this tournament. So -5 has won this. Rory won this in 2018 at -18. I do remember that course being firm and fast. Like, I feel like the greens were even faster than they'd ever been. And obviously Rory excelled during that year. So we have it just really depends on wind. Now, I think last year it wasn't as windy, but the rough is what made the scoring so poor. We have projected winds, how much the wind blows. Thursday is pretty benign. It's like 10 to 20 miles an hour or something like that, or 10 to 15. Friday is like 20 to 25 with the bulk of the wind. Like I was checking Wind Finder out before jumping on. It was like 22 miles an hour at noon, which kind of stinks. Like you'd either want to see the wind earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon to try to figure out maybe like a weather split, like a tee time split. Do you want to play golfers with the PM AM wave, or do you want to play golfers with the AM PM wave? Now, if the wind is going to be exaggerated at one particular point in the day, so again, if it's Tuesday, so obviously things can change in the next couple of days. If that's the case, so let's say tomorrow night we find out that that wind has been pushed back a little bit, so now it's more in Friday's evening round than it is in the morning round, you definitely hammer the Thursday-Friday wave. If it's the opposite, then you do the opposite, obviously. So keep that in mind. It might not be worth building lineups until Wednesday night. If you don't have the time to build lineups Wednesday night, I understand. Life is life. A lot of us are super busy and can't, we got to put lineups in now. If that's the case, then I just strongly encourage you to, well, first of all, one of 3 things, really. Either stack your PM wave, your PM AM waves, or stack your AM PM waves, or just don't care about it. Those are like the 3 scenarios that I would go with. I don't know when noon is the highest mile per hour, because it's like 9 a.m. I think it was projected to have like 18 mile an hour winds. Noon was 22 mile an hour winds. 3 p.m. was like 19, and then 6 p.m. went down to 15. So it seems like, depending on how long that round goes, I don't know if it's going to go all the way to 6 p.m., but there is the chance that one of these waves is just going to get the worst end of the draw. So always keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Okay. Moving on. Going going back to the golf course. So that was the wind. We were just talking about the wind. Going back to the golf course. It's a tough golf course. And what you see on the screen are preferred shot shapes. Now, the preferred, they aren't necessarily necessary. Some of these holes, like hole 18, you've got water all on that right side of the green. When the Sunday pin is there, we all know the Sunday pin, just like at the Honda Classic, hole 18. It is tucked, you know, right where the water's present on both the front side of the green and on the side of the green, the right side of the green. So hitting a draw, like what Chris Kirk was doing on hole 18, he ended up winning the Honda Classic, obviously. But a guy who hits a draw that sweeps it out to the right and comes back in left, well, if it doesn't come back in left, that's, you know, an issue. It's going to be very hurtful when you hit the water, because you're going to have to drop so much further back than if, say, someone were to hit a fade and over fading it, then his entry point is further up. So that's, like, to me, the difference between hitting a draw into the water and hitting a fade into the water is basically your drop point. Fade will always be better on a hole like hole 18 than a draw. Just about every single pin placement, even the pins that are on the left side of hole 18, I don't know how many times we've seen, like, I think it's a Saturday pin or maybe the Friday pin where it's back left. People hit the back end of that green and it funnels back onto the green. So even if you hit a fade and say it hits the rough on the left side of the green, chances are, now the rough will be thicker, so it might not really happen this way, but that ball can bounce out of the rough and just trickle onto the green and funnel down towards the hole. So I don't see a scenario where hole 18, a draw, is really ever beneficial unless the wind comes in from a specific angle. That's too hard to determine. The course is never going to move, so we can always forecast for what type of shot shape is preferred on the golf course every single day until wind is present and we know which way it's blowing from. But that is so hard to forecast. Like, we're just not going to do it. So anyways, that's what I have on here. And you can see it's a difference between draws and fades. I wouldn't say pretty even. It looks like a draw is way more preferred than a fade. Now, if we were to go and look at some of these results, Scheffler primarily hits a fade, Hatton hits a fade, Hovland hits a fade, Horschel hits a draw, Woodland hits a fade, Kirk hits a draw. I don't remember what Lucas Herbert does. I think he hits a draw. I think Taylor Gooch hits a draw, but Sam Burns hits a fade. I think Matt Fitzpatrick hits a draw. Keegan hits a draw. Bryson hits a draw. Westwood hits a fade. Connors hits a draw. I'm not sure about Putnam or Werenski. Spieth hits a draw. Bez hits a draw. Kirk hits a draw. Kokrak hits a draw. Zalatoris can shape it both ways, but his primary is a draw. So is Max Homa. Hatton hits a fade. Mark Leishman hits a fade. Sungjae hits a fade. DeChambeau hits a draw. Mitchell hits a fade. Damon hits a fade. Don't remember him, what Danny Lee does. McIlroy hits a draw. So it's like, it's going to be a mix. You know, obviously we've seen McIlroy win this. We've seen DeChambeau hit this. Win this. They both hit draws. Scheffler, Hatton, Francesco, Mark Leishman, they hit fades. Jason Day hits a draw. He won it in 2016. I can't remember what Every does. Obviously, Tiger won this in 2013. He shapes it both directions. So, honestly, like, you could say I think anyone can do well at this golf course just because hole 18 says there's a fade, or let's say hole 6 there's a draw. It doesn't mean they can't hit a fade. Like, it can't hit a fade on this hole. They can't hit a draw on this hole. It's just scoring opportunities become lesser on those holes because you can't get, you can't shape a shot into a tucked pin location or around a dog leg or anything like that. Hole 5 is the hole that Bryson has he had tried to drive, 2 years ago or something like that. You need to hit a draw on that one. To get it, for Bryson to do it, to get closer to his target zone. But you can hit a fade on that hole. You're just going to be further back. It just, the whole premise of me bringing this up with preferred shot shapes is scoring opportunities. It isn't necessary. It's just preferred. Oh, what's going on, Chad? Thank you. that was kind of interesting. I knew after Friday I had a really good chance of winning the bagel contest, but obviously you just don't know. There were like 3 other people that got six through the cut. I was one of them. Ended up being Ruvi, who had 5 of 6 through the cut, but his 5 players were a bit more they were a bit more or let's say they were better than any 5 that I had, but I just had that 6th player that was able to get me additional points. So it was close. I was dreading a Benny and eagle putt. Or an eagle on the last hole. I was just thankful he hit the water. But if he had birdied it, I still was going to win it. So just the fact that there was no eagle opportunity kind of sealed it for me, which was nice. And has put me up on the year. So we're back to in the green, or in the black, we should say, and have some playing money. Of course, that money actually just went to my vet visit, to be honest, Chad, which is it's how life works, right? Riding highs one day and then riding lows another day. So anyways, that is the tournament. Well, that's the course information. I haven't even talked about the tournament information. 120 golfers in this field. And I think we have this sorted by sweet spot rank. Sure. Strength of field, 779. This is right up there with the Genesis that we just saw. I think that was also in the 700s. I think the Waste Management Phoenix Open or the WM Phoenix Open was 719. So if you're doing any kind of research or anything like that, if you have the capability of looking at strength of field, and this is like the old strength of field points, so I don't know really what websites are doing this anymore. I will continue to do this because it just makes more sense to me to do this than look at the current OWGR rating of like what 12.1 or whatever the heck it is. Just doesn't make any sense. I hate that rating. I know there's some people that like it, but when I get to compare 779 versus last week, the Honda Classic, which was like 170, you can really tell the disparity between the strength of field. Whereas like 12.1 versus 10, you're not really going to see like until you like put your, to me, it looks better this way. I like seeing a 600 point difference than like a 1.2 point difference, you know, because there's just no gravity with that. Anyways, if you can use that as research purposes, wonderful. If you can't, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Like I said, 120 people in the field. Getting 6 of 6 through the cut is theoretically easier because there are less golfers in the field, and there are some names you can just cross off. You know, like any of the people down here, anybody in the low 6. Well, I'm sorry, this isn't going by salaries, but anybody in the low 6K range, you probably can just cross off. You can also, you know, play some lotto tickets down here. Because like Kevin Streelman, by the way, not a terrible golfer. You certainly can play him. Troy Merritt at the Stone minimum. He's 83rd in my model. Usually what I like to do is play like the top 100 golfers. I usually just remove all golfers that are ranked 100 and above, which I'll probably do at the end of this video. That way you can kind of narrow your player pool a little bit more. Yeah, Troy Merritt's not terrible. So there are several lineup possibilities this week, especially when there are only 3 10K golfers. I don't know what the hell DK is doing. This is so stupid. I want to see 12K and 13K golfers to make lineup building that much more interesting. Whatever. So that is the conclusion of your tournament and golf course information.